start.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 46th edition of Coffee with Ashish. And today we've got a very special guest with us, Padmini Mishra ji, who's an advisor and influencer of people practices, business mentor, and a keynote speaker on HR and people advisory. And before we get into conversation with her, I think it's a very pertinent topic around especially in current situation where a lot of emphasis is being done on not only people engagement but also the emotional and mental well-being of employees, making sure that they are enthusiastic, they are engaged, they feel that they are literally part of the organization. Still many employees are also, we talk to so many industry leaders, and there is a growing fear in the minds of a lot of people that what's going to happen with their jobs. And even if we talk about from a skill development perspective, and that's where I have also personally spent a lot of time, whether it's vocational skill or whether it's conventional skill development, we've all seen the issues associated, especially in the travel and tourism sector, because if you see the skill pipeline of travel, tourism, hospitality, aviation sector, it's very narrow. So at the entry point, you get a lot of people who are unskilled, semi-skilled, and they don't, and I mean they wear multiple hats, right? And then gradually there is a long pipeline of skill building in travel tourism. And traditionally it's not a sector where a lot of people invest heavily in people, right? It's most of the travel agents we have seen are very promoter driven organizations with 2 3 4 member team, and the growth path and aspirations for a lot of these people are also very limited. I think it's only with the advent of a lot of these large MNC TMCs coming in and OTAs that got funded, where we have actually institutionalized a career growth path in the travel and tourism industry. Otherwise, I think at large, it still remains an industry which is full of a lot of semi-skilled people, and a lot of hustlers who can get things done, and wear multiple hats. But I think that really puts a lot of emphasis now on creating the right people pipeline and skill development. And I think over the last 45 shows we have had here, we have covered anything and everything under the sun in the travel fraternity. But I think, Ashish, you would agree that we have never really focused on the people aspect, and how do we actually nurture the next generation of leaders who can actually take forward the legacy of travel and tourism.
Correct.
And even when we talk about in people development, I mean, I've spoken to so many industry leaders, and whenever the issue of HR comes up, I think it's most of them always consider it as a support function, and they have very limited view of the kind of impact that a strong people function can have on the organization. And in fact, I have a small cartoon to sort of show that what typically people get to imagine about HR or people development when they hear about it. So on the left to right, if you see, it's about what generally people think about, what your peers and family members think, and then what you actually end up doing is bottom right in most of the organizations. So it kind of resonates with even when I was working with some of the large MNCs, that the role of people development in HR is not very well understood by most of the people in the industry. And that's, I think, a very pertinent issue which we are going to discuss in great deal today. And who better to talk about it than our special guest on the show today, Padmini Mishra ji, who's got over 3 decades of distinguished experience of being associated with some of the largest MNCs in the service industry, spanning hospitality, BPM, retail, and travel and tourism. She transitioned from business to people practices, over the 3 decades, and she takes also pride in having handled assignments not only for large MNCs but also for startups and large corporations undergoing their transition from a mid-market stage to a large MNC. And she's also often considered the startup queen, as she's the pioneer of BPM industry in India almost 20 years ago. And she's worked with some of the largest companies like General Electric, Wipro, Aditya Birla Group, Cox and Kings, and she has headed the HR and business functions across multiple geographies for these companies across UK, Europe, US, Asia, and Middle East. And she's been a not only a HR practitioner but also a guide, mentor, and a guru for a lot of startups and individuals. She's also been a policy and research committee member of Bombay Chambers of Commerce and Industry. She has been awarded with several industry honors and citations, including Women Achiever Award, Most Influential HR Leader, and Global Diversity and Inclusion Leadership Award by the World HRD Congress. She's also a talent management practice leader by ET and SAP HR India Award. So the list goes on and on. And I think we are really in safe hands today when we take up this matter of people development and building the next generation of future leaders, and how as industry leaders we can really take advantage of some of the good practices around people development and include it strategically into our growth path. So with this, a very warm welcome to you, Padmini ji, to our show. And with this, I'm going to hand it over to Ashish to have a conversation with you while I sit back and enjoy my coffee.
Thank you.
Well, Padmini, enjoy your water while I enjoy my coffee. All right.
It's tea time for me now.
Right. Okay. So, one has heard so much of this financial capital erosion, equity erosion in businesses, etc. One is obviously concerned and addressed the human angle at various stages. But what is the new normal when it comes to human equity dilution and the aspects of erosion in the near and short term and the long term future? How do you see it spanning out?
Thank you, Ashish. I'm absolutely, humbled to be a part of your chat and coffee show. I think you've been doing a wonderful series, and it's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. See, for me, I'm a long-term optimist. Obviously, in the short term, I'm a realist, like anybody should be. So, secondly, I believe that, such like catastrophes, though very, very painful, again really take us back to the drawing board, teach us lessons of impermanence, and are extremely important if we want to, sort of create a renaissance. Renaissance don't happen by themselves. They are made to happen. So when we look at, something as terrible and as horrible as what we are going through right now with the pandemic, but if we look at it traditionally, every time there has been a quantum leap, it has been a leap from, through a huge pathway of pain. So while I'm not going to at all say that I'm happy with what's happening or the job losses or literally the wipeout of some industries, because it's extremely painful, I actually also want to sort of bring forward the fact that there's a lot of positive things that are already happening and will continue to happen.
Right.
Especially in the field of human capital. Right. And I think Karthik was very smart in starting us off with that cartoon. And honestly speaking, somewhere in the place of business, the human capital piece had started getting a bit diluted. So we were all working in companies on what I call shareholder capitalism. We were all worried about how much return can we get for the shareholder. So it was very, very monofocused. Now this whole situation is actually again going to take us back to the genesis, which is stakeholder capitalism, where we are not only going to think about the shareholder, but we are going to think about the customer, the employee, the vendors, and the community. So in terms of the employee, suddenly everybody's sort of now woken up to the fact, right from the boardroom to the security guard at your gate, that hey, listen, the P&L is not just about commercial acquisition. It is also about, talent. It's about people. It's about both external and internal customers. So there's a huge shift. We all know, suddenly in April and May, every article, every magazine was talking about how important the CHRO has become. Well, I felt a little sad because we didn't need this to bring forth the importance of the CHRO. But then at the same time, if it is so, then it is time that people started valuing human capital as an asset much more than, their capex investments.
Right.
So in the short answer, yes, people are going through a lot of grief. There are job losses, there are salary cuts, there's a lot of churn. But I think in the long run, this is going to bring in a leveling. It's going to bring in a leveling across hierarchy, a leveling across functionalities. It's a great leveler, as I call it. And we're going to get, especially for HR, a huge amount of opportunity to help the business do some strategic course corrections. It's not about just the HR manager and his function. It's about the HR manager and the amount of impact he can make on helping, the board and the CEO and the CEO and the C-suite make some strategic course corrections. That's my view.
Right. So do you really see, therefore, employers changing the way they hire employees and employees themselves to be adapting and reskilling themselves to be able to fit into in the new scene of things?
Oh, yes, Ashish, absolutely. Something that I've always advocated, but now it's the norm. For HR, they will have to understand that now the recruitment specs will need to change. We have to hire for attitude and not aptitude, because aptitudes are very short-lived. The shelf life of the competencies for which you hire, within 6 months are obsolete. They were anyway becoming obsolete. Now with this disruption, it's so unpredictable. Nobody really knows. It's a blind leading the blind. Well, at least, so when it comes to hiring, we will have to hire for attitude. We will have to look out for people, especially leaders, who can innovate, who can prioritize, who can simplify, have the agility to change, have the resilience to withstand, and at the same time are empathetic. And the reason I say this word empathetic, from the new hires or the rehires or people rejoining corporations, there's a lot of loss in the trust quotient.
Right.
So even people who are getting jobs again or being rehired back in their corporations, they're not coming back with the same kind of loyalty. And let's not ask why. So I think now we have to get used to also another piece that I find very interesting is a huge amount of inclusivity, because the profile of workers is going to change. According to me, you're only going to have your fixed talent, which is your permanent people on payroll. You shouldn't, if you are sensible, have more than 40%. And 60% of your human capital will come to you both from the market, as well as you should take people who will be gig workers, people who will be temps, people who will be consultants, people who will be, contractual. Because gone are those days of loyalty, because people have sampled loyalty, both sides. And so we don't need to keep harping on the old traditional values of, this is what we bring to you. We'll have to change the story if we want to get good quality people. We'll have to be very honest, we'll have to be candid, and we'll have to look for talent which is equally agreeable to that. There might be people doing 2 jobs. There may be somebody working with you for 3 hours in the morning and somebody working with me for the next 3 hours.
Right.
And we have to be open to that.
Sure, in a way it helps both, because for the employee to be able to multi-skill, learn more avenues, and of course the employees to be able to spread. But I come back to two very Trojan horse kind of questions built around digitalization and technology. One is in the 90s and the early 2000s, and I'm coming to travel and tourism specifically. We said the best CEOs who were great bookkeepers. They were chartered accountants. They were CEO. They could understand balance sheets well, so on and so forth. And in some breath, we also said they should make good salesmen and good marketing people, etc., etc. And suddenly, when I use the word Trojan horses, I make a point, but I think the good CEOs may probably have to be better CTOs before they are good CEOs, right? So they have to be technology. And if you look at the landscape of some of the most flourishing companies which have come up in the recent times, are led by very technology-driven CEOs. That's one statement. The second statement I'm making, and I've seen it, and I'm sure you've seen it from practical perspective, that whereas travel organizations do want to imbibe technology, do want to get their skilling moving, and suddenly with all this adaptation of technology going gung-ho, they fail because of lack of understanding down the line of employee as to how to be able to use the platform which has been given to them or created for them, and adapt to the work processes. And I've seen myself in large and medium organizations, large investments failing. So, I mean, how do you react to both these situations of CEO being what they should be and projects failing down the line?
So, Ashish, in my view, a CEO, CEOs, I would, the biggest quality that I would look for if I were to recruit a CEO would be people skills, would be interpersonal relationship. Because I personally believe that even if it's technology adoption within an organization, the CEO must be technology aware, but does not have to be an expert. That's available. So as long as the CEO is, reasonably intelligent, which I'm sure he or she will be at that position, and is aware of how the numbers work, which means the financials, is aware of the benefits, advantages, and features of technology, and therefore, why does he want it? What is the end purpose? So I think for a CEO, the end purpose is key. What does he or she want? Like what we call the vision. What is the purpose of the company? What is the meaning of this organization's existence for him or for her? Once now that can't change. Goals will change. So we talk about we want so much money at the end of year 1 and so much money at the end of year 3. We do all those statistics and analysis and have lots of data sheets. According to me, these are just goalposts. These are just numbers we want to get to sort of then move forward. But the purpose is not a moving goalpost. So number one, a CEO is one who has to be very, very clear in what does he or she, view that organization to represent. Now, if that is clear, the second one is leadership, people management. I personally think the best CEOs will be ex-HR people, or at least they should have gone through 2 to 3 years of HR. When they go into sort of internal preparation or orientation to the role of a CEO, HR is critical. Like you mentioned, companies pump in money, and I've been in those companies as well, in technology. But we don't go beyond that. We are not marketing it to the employees, to the internal users.
Right.
The internal users' mindset has to change. Because normally they either see it as a threat, that I'm going to lose my job. So obviously they don't like it. Obviously they don't want to use it. They want to prove back to you that it's utter rubbish. Or they view that this is some kind of a feel-good activity being done by, the CEO and the CEO. Because they want to then get their brownie points. So it's just for now, ignore it. In fact, Ashish, I've even seen the tech team ignoring it. Saying that, it's okay. With time, everybody will kind of come to agreement with even a half-baked technology ERP rollout that we have given to business. Because then they can sit back and say, business doesn't know what it's doing. Business says the technology doesn't understand what we need. So that marriage never happened. But we put the man and the woman or whatever, man and man together in a room and said, now, enjoy. And each of you are going to flourish with each other. But actually the marriage didn't happen.
Right.
So I think it's more about the preparation And then please give the roll out the technology and stay with it till it does not get, stabilized. Not just technology stability, but the user stability. I hope that kind of.
Yeah. One of the first shows was, I think we had a first show on the 14th of April. You're probably the 46th or 47th guest. Karthik can tell me exactly the number. But having said that, those were the days there was big thing about work from home. And my first reaction, even on that first show, was, I said, if it's work from home, why not work from hometown?
Good point.
Right? I remember reacting this in April.
Yeah.
Then I also had conversation with few guests, and you said, how was such a far-fetched idea? There's still water cooler conversation. There is still, that connect, eye contact, all that. So I've been through that kind of conversations with my various guests. And the other day I was reading this article in Economic Times as to how there is a big boom in co-working and co-living space in tier 2 and 3 spaces. And, one of the biggest criticism on this working from hometown was, in Cuttack, there is hardly any connectivity of internet. What do you talk about connecting? So, if the guy from Cuttack can actually work out of Bhubaneswar, why the hell does he have to come to Gurgaon and rent a flat and live there? So how do you react to this overall on this work from hometown, work from home? Another statement, Padmini, sorry, I made, because that's related to this. And I've been saying that I'd like to see the next wave of Make My Trip to actually come from Shillong. Why should Make My Trip actually originate out of Gurgaon? Why can't it originate from any other city? Because internet, the way it is, you could be setting up companies anywhere to be able to grow anywhere, or at least the sum of many parts, not one whole. So how does this look to you in the current canvas from human and emotional quotient?
Yeah. So, I personally think it'll have to be blended. And we have to understand from a strategic perspective. And again, I go back to what is the purpose and the meaning of your existence. In which are the pieces that can certainly go virtual, and which are the pieces which are difficult to go virtual or close to impossible. So I, Ashish, personally think that we have to use, we need some thought leadership here. We need to go back and brainstorm. We'll have to ideate. But end of the day, I'm in a way glad that as HR, what we were trying to, break that wall of work from home has actually got broken down. So corporations are now agreeing that work from home is a possibility, because a lot of companies have experimented with it and are getting good results with it. The flip side is that a lot of companies, both from their financial capability and the nature of the business that they do, may not be able to do work from home, because work from home needs a lot of investment, technology investment, helping that employee change his mindset, educating him, training him, providing him with some kind of infrastructure, because work from home today for these 6 months has created havoc. There's a lot of impact on family relationships, mental health, and so on and so forth, because it is socially people need to meet people. Therefore, that coffee counter chat was always a part of the deal. Houses don't have so much space to have 3 different members of the family all working from home. There is now today no border between work and life. We used to talk about work-life balance. Now that's gone for a toss. So in some ways, there are some issues that work from home is inevitably bringing. But I think I agree with you. We have to keep our minds open. We have to keep quickly thinking of innovative and creative ways of blending the two, so that we can still keep our foot on the pedal for generating revenue. If not making money, at least optimizing what we have, because making money is right now at least 12 months away in a lot of businesses, but at least surviving rather than having to shut shop or sack people. So in this mode, we'll have to be smart. I mean, we'll have to be compassionate at the same time. And we can agree that these jobs can be done from Shillong. And it really doesn't matter where I'm sitting, because then it will give me more flexibility. It will make you pay lesser to me, maybe. So it's a win-win. But in some cases, the jobs may be of a nature that it can't be worked from home. And right now they're struggling because only 30% staff are being allowed in the corporations. But I know that once it's all unlocked and stuff like that, companies will call back people. And then the infrastructure of that office place and the HR head and the admin head, etc., will have to create a new ecosystem. And that's where your co-living, co-work spaces will have to go through a redesign and redefine kind of
Right.
activity.
I don't know where
I'm completely comfortable with suggesting that work from home, work from anywhere, so long as the work continues and there is a level of harmony and productivity. Well, the job's done. We didn't fuss about it.
And I don't know where I got this percentage, 20%, that I felt over the years, 20% of the jobs disappeared in the travel and tourism industry from women, because they either got married, moved with their husband to wherever their husband was, or they came in the family way, dropped their job and so on. And I certainly see, of course, these are bad times. There are not enough jobs to be taken. I certainly see a great opportunity for them to re-enter them in their midlife, especially with gig working and so on, because they are skilled in travel and tourism, and they could easily be able to come back into the industry.
It's a very rich talent pool that you mentioned.
Right. So I think over the next 1 or 2 years, Padmini, you'll see a great influence of people who would have left the industry a few years ago because of various reasons I've just mentioned, re-entering once the jobs open up.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that would be a very welcome, sort of investment to the businesses, to the travel corporations, and again, it's win-win. I mean, there's no reason why a lady employee or even a gent employee who, for whatever other reasons, could not continue with commuting all the way, or health reasons, family responsibilities. I think so HR has to do some redefining even in that thinking, and then convincing all their colleagues, the COO and the marketing head and the finance head and the technology head. So yes, but it's a good opportunity to really increase the talent. So like Karthik mentioned, that there is a funneling of the talent pool in the travel trade. I've experienced it myself. Yeah. It's not like a pyramid. Because at the bottom we have a lot of people, but in the middle, we suddenly start losing. We don't know who next to promote, because the person may have not gone through a certain learning and development, skill build, etc. Or maybe the person is not even interested. So it's a skill issue or a will issue. Because they take it for us, they assume that I will just keep growing up the ladder because I've been here for 20 years, 30 years, or whatever. But that's not the future.
Sorry to interrupt. One of the biggest dilemmas I faced in one of the large companies I've been CEO was that over the years, since everybody wanted a lateral move up, they wanted to be promoted. So all we landed up doing was a guy doing the same job. We only, changed his designation to make him feel good, or gave him more salaries to make him feel good. But he was actually doing the same job because, you couldn't take those jobs anywhere. Right. Great. I had Nick Lim. Nick Lim is the managing director of Travel Corporation, who's Singapore based, and they own the brands like Trafalgar and so on. And he mentioned that, we are now going to be on each of our coach tours. They do these conducted coach tours in Europe and all over the world and so on. And said, we are going to be appointing safety director on each of our tours, whose job is just to make sure that the customers are safe and we follow the safety guidelines worldwide wherever we go. And I told him, I said, Nick, whereas you say that you're going to be appointing a safety director, I said, I see that travel companies will have to be appointing a safety officer to make sure that their customers are safe, because in day-to-day operations, people who run day-to-day operations will overlook the fact of safety somewhere on the guidelines. Just as we overlook a lot of internal audit and audit guidelines, etc., in our desire to run our operations. So I said, the question is going to be, is the CEO going to be wearing a hat of a chief safety officer himself, or there's going to be a separate chief safety person be appointed? How do you react on a closing statement to such kind of positioning?
Okay, so I commend their decision, like you said, TCI, Singapore, and stuff like that. I compliment and I commend their decision to have one security officer in every bus, because it'll be very reassuring to their customers. So it's a good way to build your brand equity in the marketplace. So that's a good idea. Having said that, it's the response. I think I agree with you. It's a responsibility of the CEO. It has to be leadership driven and has to be top down, because that safety officer will even if the person, the man or the woman, wants to do his or her job with all sincerity and earnestness, will not get any support if the culture does not support it. And who defines the culture? The man at the top or the woman at the top, because everybody looks up at what does the boss do? Where does the boss see prioritization? Is the boss following the same habits of sanitization and social distancing, or is it his prerogative to break through all rules because he's CEO? So I think if you're wanting to make a change, and especially when it comes to people, you've got to practice what you're preaching. And just that frontliner there standing there will be very good as a marketing idea, excellent idea, but will not go very far. So to me, the CEO, the entire C-suite, the risk officer. So if you already have a risk officer or a risk, owner, can double hat for safety, because safety is now the new norm. It's about responsible citizenship. Mm. So we've got safety, we've got security, and we've got sustainability. According to me, these are the only three things that I would want to, if somebody were consulting and asked me, what do I do? Where do I put my, which basket do I put my eggs into now? Because there is a lot of confusion. There's a lot of chaos. There is no doubt about it. We're all in a flux. We've never seen this before. We can't imagine what next to do or what else is coming to us. But the point is, the three S's is what I'm going to suggest. Please look at everything from top to bottom in terms of safety for all people, employees, customers, vendors, community. Security, that means asset security, human capital security, etc. And sustainability, because those businesses, the ones that looked at sustainability before the pandemic, are the ones which are still surviving, Ashish.
Good. So I'm going to pass you to Karthik for concluding, but one last one-liner for people who may be listening and saying, what's she talking about? There are no jobs anywhere. I don't have a job. And what do I do? So what's your one-liner for people who may be feeling that pinch? Let's address that.
Yes, currently you don't have a job, and that's real. So there's no wishing it away. There are just three things you can do. One is keep up that attitude. You give up, you're not going to anyway get a job. So one is internally, please be patient. This will pass. We're pretty much there. It's just a few more months or maybe whatever time. But attitudinally, please be patient and do not give up. In terms of actions, keep looking, keep yourself out there in the market, whether through LinkedIn, social media, through your friends, through headhunters, but keep promoting yourself. Because if you don't do that, you'll become yesterday. Actions, keep promoting yourself. Network, social media. Number two, invest your time in learning, reading, new skill acquisition, and for free. I know you don't have a salary, so I'm not saying go pay big bucks and do a course. You don't need to. We have a lot of free material available on the internet. So my one-liner is attitude, hang in there. This will pass. You've got to be patient, no matter how much pain you're going through. Action, please stay out in the market. Don't get forgotten. And number 2, learn. You didn't get time to learn? Learn. This is your time.
Right. So thank you, Padmini. And over to you, Karthik, if you have something to conclude on.
Sure, lovely listening to you, Padmini ji. And I'm just going to add on to that last point you made about, how people can be more resilient in current situation. I also want to get a sense from you that somebody who's, let's say, in the travel industry, or somebody who's a fresher trying to enter the travel industry, now is not a good time for them to be really motivated about looking at travel industry as a whole, right? And the flip side is also from an employer perspective, that how do they still give assurance to their employees that what good days are going to, I know we've all seen these campaigns that we'll pass through it or whatever, but the ground reality is that the employee is scared that whether travel, I know so many people have reached out to me asking that should I make a switch, is this the right time to move out of travel industry? So those kind of tough conversations are happening both from the employer side and employee side. So what is your view that how both of these stakeholders can be given comfort and can be reassured that you be in this sector and there's probably going to be good days again?
Yeah. See, it's really a very, very personal call. But it'll depend on capacity to sustain. So in real words, if you don't get an income, if you're not getting an income and you don't have a job, or you're at the entry level and you just qualified, whatever, done your graduation or your IATA course, and you were looking out to joining this business maybe 8, 9 months ago, late of last year, things were not bad and you were looking out for a job. I think it's a personal call. It's about your ability to sustain, because how long can you hang in there? Now, if you have the financial capability to sustain, then I know you can then do things like I'm saying, network, try, learn, study, upskill. But financially, if you don't have that capability, then I think it's obvious you'll have to take a call, because I don't think anybody, I mean, at least I can't, and I don't believe anyone can put some kind of a timeline on when the travel trade and all the airlines and all the international travel and more so leisure will start picking up. It's a no-brainer that first, the business travel will start. So the commercial travel will start. But then commercial is not what the entire travel trade depends on. That's just one of the subsets. So, but international leisure travel is some time to come.
Right.
So therefore, I mean, I am always a woman of plain talk, and all I can say is that if you can hold on, you have holding capability, well, you'll hold on. If you don't, well, take a call. But I mean, no assumptions and predictions, according to me, are reliable. What is reliable? Life is right now not reliable. So what are you talking?
Right. No, really appreciate your candid and open-hearted advice and words of wisdom. With this, we are at the end of today's session. Thank you so much, Padmini ji, for joining us, and thanks Ashish as always. Thank you everyone who has joined in today, and we're going to see you all on Thursday with Ajay Bali of BCD. We would also share key takeaways and learnings from this session by tomorrow. So those of you who want to get a summarized version of Padmini ji's wisdom, we'll try to do that in an encapsulated manner. Thank you so much again, Padmini ji, for sparing your time and joining us. Hope you had fun in the conversation, and we look forward to being in touch with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karthik, and thank you, Ashish, and thank you to everybody who's listening in. Thanks a lot for your time and patience.
All right, Padmini.
Thank you. Bye.